So, Gino Meda bräuchte noch mal Technik. ROUVY, please.
Hello and welcome to day 2 of the Digital Swiss 5. We're in the Saal in Zurich for the second of 5 races in this exciting new development in online bike racing, as top athletes from the worlds of road racing, mountain biking, triathlon and even rowing do battle for individual glory and the honour of their teams. We've got 5 teams of up to 6 riders, some here in the Saal Sportshalle, others competing at remote locations, racing on the ROUVY platform of real-time videos through some of Switzerland's most beautiful cities. We're in the extraordinary lakeside location of Lugano today, and in marked contrast to yesterday's mostly flat route, this is the hilliest of the 5 circuits the riders will face this weekend. 3 laps of 12.9 kilometres await, with 240 metres of altitude gain per lap. Yesterday's first race through the virtual streets of Lucerne produced runaway successes for UCI World e-bike champion Jason Osborne and world and Olympic medalist Marlon Reusser. In the team's competition, Team Lugano are the early leaders, with the combined efforts of triathlon stars Thomas Steger, Hannah de Vet and Hayden Wilde producing an historic first victory in the series. Well, Stefan Schwenke is standing by to introduce the teams as they limber up for a second assault on the Digital Swiss 5. Well, let's see who's going racing today.
So let's welcome the teams of the second stage of this Digital Swiss 5, beginning with Team Lucerne representing Switzerland. Welcome Conny Loser. At his side, the 4th of the Olympics of Tokyo representing Belgium, Martin van Riel, and the 3rd of this team from Switzerland, Nina Derand. For Team Lugano, riding today here in the Saal-Sporthalle, the 3rd of the Olympic Games of Tokyo from New Zealand. Welcome Hayden Wilde. Welcome from Austria, the 10th of the overall ranking of the Giro d'Italia, Hermann Pernsteiner. And from Belgium as well, from the triathletes, Harle de Wit. We welcome Team Zurich in the middle. Welcome representing Switzerland, second of the Olympic Games of Tokyo in the time trial. Here is Marlen Reusser. Welcome as well from Switzerland, riding for Bahrain Victorious today, Team Zurich, Gino Meda. And another triathlete, welcome from Switzerland, Adrien Buffon. We can call it Team Germany, today it's Team Basel, another very strong triathlete representing Germany, Boris Stein. In the white jersey with the rainbow color, the world champion, Jason Osborne. And as well from Germany, Team Basel, welcome Laura Chacon. And at least Team Lausanne today with from the Czech Republic, John Zaska. From Switzerland, welcome, riding for Team Quebeca next, the stage winner of the Giro d'Italia, Mauro Schmid. And, well, one is missing. We hope that Susanna Savarova will join the race as well. Und natürlich herzlich willkommen damit das erste Mal hinaus in die Welt, Max Löschke, der bereits digital zugeschaltet ist. Denn, ja, die Teams sind ja nicht nur in der Saalsporthalle hier mit dabei. So we have another rider. Franz Löschke, we can see him, we say hello to him in Germany, I guess. One of the digital riders. Und ja, damit sind wir mittendrin im Rennen hier in der Saalsporthalle und natürlich auch draußen. Das Ganze läuft auf den Streams, auf den verschiedenen Kanälen, auf dem Tour de Suisse Kanal, auf den Social Media Kanälen und bei Velon und sind.
So that's Franz Luschke from Team Basel, who's racing in a remote location, and he's pressing on. You can tell there's a little bit of extra intensity among those riders as Stefan was completing the team's introduction. That's because we're underway. The race is underway. The riders in the hall are pressing hard on those pedals and into the most intense moment of this 3 laps of 12.9 kilometers. It is, as I have already mentioned, the hilliest of these circuits, and we look forward very shortly to seeing exactly what's happening. Here we have it on screen in the early moments of this race as the riders are really making huge efforts. I can tell you the likes of Connie Loser, Reto Hollenstein, they're the ones that are making the early inroads and trying to gain a little bit of an advantage over the others. Sean Bennett maybe a little bit chastened by his performances in yesterday's race. Good effort from him, but not quite maybe what he would have expected, would have hoped for a little bit better than 8th. He climbs well, he'll be looking forward to this one today, and he's well to the fore in the early stages. Kenny Loser, as you can see, leading the early moments ahead of Sean Bennett, Lukasz Tomaszek, and everybody is already into a really intense moment. I can tell you, Gino Mader, get a great shot of him there. He's a real character, isn't he? He's not just a pretty haircut. He is a wonderful climber, wonderful competitor, and he really made a huge effort yesterday to stay with Jason Osborne, the leader. Question is, will Mader perhaps be looking forward to this one? I think he too as well, his road racing teammate Hermann Bernsteiner is going to look forward to this one as well. They're racing on different teams today, but it is Marlen Reusser just on the left of your shot there. She'll be anxious, I think. It was a dominant performance from the darling of Swiss time trialling. She, of course, was an Olympic and World Championship silver medalist in the time trial this year, and Marlen Reusser was a dominant winner of yesterday's first event, and the woman from Newvalden will be hoping to try and improve upon that today. Apologies, she's not from Newvalden, but she is a really superstar competitor who is, I think maybe, well, will she enjoy the hills that are going to face? Interestingly enough, Thomas Steger has now moved towards the head of affairs. Steger was such an impressive performance yesterday, performer indeed yesterday for the Lugano squad. Racing triathlete, of course. Indeed, I think it's worth noting that the Lugano team packed so well close to the front yesterday that they took a dominant win in the team's performance, and indeed they had Hermann Pernsteiner in 4th place, didn't score for the team. His wonderful 4th place not necessary or not required to score for their team. It's the top 2 men and the top woman from each team that score for their squads, and Pernsteiner with his 4th place finish yesterday not actually scoring, which gives you a really great sense of just how well the Lugano squad are packing towards the front. And all 3 of their scoring riders are triathletes, so the triathletes putting it up to the roadies and the mountain bike racers so far in the team's competition. We're already into the early stages of this event, approaching 5 minutes of bike racing here. We'll have over an hour of racing. Gino Maders ensuring that he's staying thereabouts. Hayden Wild, Thomas Steger, Jason Osborne is in the wheels at the moment and taking as much compensation from the draft effect as he possibly can. The UCI World Champion getting to wear those rainbow stripes. Quick chat with him at breakfast this morning. Looked pretty relaxed about things, and Jason Osborne, I think, is, well, he's relaxed, but I wonder how he fancies his chances of climbing. 260 metres per lap adds up to a fair bit of climbing. It's not quite alpine stuff, but nonetheless, it is a grippy one. We are, in a virtual sense, down in the southernmost part of Switzerland and racing in a part of the world. It's the Italian region, the Ticino region. One of the most beautiful. Of course, the Lake Lugano borders Italy, separates Italy from Switzerland. And up front, Hayden Wild is charging on. Steger as well, looking good at the moment. Osborne with that familiar style. He gives away, betrays nothing on his face. It really is extraordinary the way he can make these intense efforts and just has that poker face that belies really the effort and the intensity. He's I tell you what, those riders around him, they understand just how painful this is. Laura Chacon-Bibac, this is just to his left, and also a teammate, of course, of Jason Osborne on the Basel team, which finished second in the team's competition yesterday. Marlon Reusser, of course, her victory amongst the women, ensuring that Team Zurich are thereabouts in the team's rankings. 3rd of the 5 teams yesterday. Luzerne finishing 4th, and Team Lausanne were 5th ranked squad. Their best performer, Alexandra Keller, 4th in the women's competition. And Keller's a non-starter today. She's been replaced by Maro Schmidt, who's into action. Team Quebec next Ash rider. Unfortunately for them, Susanna Zafarova fallen ill just this morning, so the Czech mountain bike racer is a non-starter this morning or this afternoon in this 2nd of 5 races in the Digital Swiss 5. So disappointment for Lausanne. They're going to it's going to be accounting a 0 amongst the women, and I think that's going to really put pay to their chances of challenging for team's success. So an early bounce back from Team Lausanne, not looking likely, are on the cards at the moment. Nonetheless, there are individual honours to be raced for amongst the men and the women, and they've got Jan Schaske, Maro Schmidt, Sami Hurseler also pressing on. A quick reminder, of course, that not all the riders in this event are in the Salzsporthalle in Zurich. Of course, many of the team competitors are racing in a virtual sense at home, including Franz Luschke for Team Basel, who looks relaxed, doesn't he? And he's not just eyeing the camera to have a look at us, he's looking at the screen to get a sense of just how close to the head of affairs he is at the moment. And it's Steger that is doing a really solid job at the moment. Thomas Steger, great 2nd place finish yesterday for the 29-year-old Austrian triathlete from Jembach. And that 2nd place finish, it fell under the radar a little bit. It was such a dominant victory by Jason Osborne, but Steger too was solo and clear of the rest in his fight for 2nd place. And although he was distanced by Jason Osborne, he put significant time into the rest of the field. Good old scrap for the podium, the final podium position amongst the men, but Steger was up the road and scoring very well indeed for the Lugano squad. So Steger staying close to the head of affairs, as indeed are many of the leading lights from yesterday, but we haven't quite hit the big climbs yet. In actual fact, we're just at one of these moments on this course. The big climb comes about 2/3 of the way through the 12-kilometre lap, so probably about 8 kilometres in. And we'll see the pain face really start to appear from these riders. Gino Mader, Thomas Steger, Hayden Wild from New Zealand. Just called him Hayden Wilder there, but he's very much a New Zealander. Herman Pernsteiner running well towards the front as well. Sean Bennett, as I mentioned, was thereabouts in the early moments, has just become ever so slightly detached from that leading group of 4 riders. So this is just a nervous little moment here for Bennett, racing at home in a virtual sense. And there you have it, the situation with Osborne, Pernsteiner, Steger and Wild. Gino Mader's there as well, but just a little bit of daylight between themselves and Bennett. Lukasz Tomaszek, and then Connie Loser, Reto Hollenstein, who did a great job yesterday. Reto Hollenstein's he's a big unit, and he is a rider that might have had a little bit of fear about the particular characteristics of this route today. Did a really solid job yesterday for his squad. But Reto Hollenstein from Team Zurich finished 7th yesterday. 36-year-old Swiss rider from Frauenfeld is pressing on the pedals, but at the moment becoming detached somewhat from the leading contenders. Pain and the suffering etched onto the faces of the riders as they work their way through the early moments of this bike race. To remind you, it's 3 laps in total of 12.9 kilometers, so slightly shorter race than yesterday's, but it's certainly grippier. So it'll all amount, I suspect, when it comes to the average speed, it'll be a similar sort of length of time, around about an hour of racing. And well, we've hit the next ramp, and the percentage is in advance of 6% at the moment, so this is a challenging moment. We're very much on a climb, and we're in that point in the bike race and on the lap when the very best climbers will start to assert their authority. And Hayden Wild's flying, so too is Thomas Steger. Jason Osborne, look at that, just spikes at 7 watts per kilo, 6.3, 6.5, those kind of numbers. Much made of the fact that he had the lowest core temperature of any of the riders in this event yesterday. He managed to stay cool, calm and collected while putting out intense wattage and extraordinary numbers. Riders continuing to drag themselves up and drag themselves clear, and Steger and Osborne, well, if you thought the route might perhaps suit the likes of Herman Pernsteiner, a climber by trade, a man who's finished top 10 in the Giro d'Italia in, well, just over 12 months ago, wasn't it, in 2020. Well, at the moment, Pernsteiner's thereabouts, but might be getting a little bit anxious about the performance of Jason Osborne and indeed Thomas Steger. They are racing clear of the rest, putting a little bit of daylight, and by which I mean just the little matter of maybe 5 meters or so, into Hayden Wild. Herman Pernsteiner desperately trying to stay on terms with Hayden Wild. Relatively short climb this, but I think the top of it can't come quick enough as the percentage goes up over 6% briefly, and the constant gradient really testing the riders across this real-time video. Sense of the fact that this is the largest all Italian-speaking town in Switzerland. 3 make that 4 languages. Franz Luschke is pressing on as well to try and hang on grimly in there. And Luschke is, well, wearing those colours with pride. Team Basel represented his avatar, of course, carrying his Team Basel colours, which are rather fetching white and black. Basel with Jason Osborne doing the needful towards the head of affairs at the moment, himself, Steger and Hayden Wild. And once again, you've got 2 riders from Team Lugano. For all that Jason Osborne approaching the grippiest part of this climb, just really asserting his authority. He's out of the saddle, I can tell you, at the moment in the hall. We've reached this apex point of the climb where we're lifting it up to around about 11% gradient, and Osborne has had a look at this circuit, you can tell, because he's out of the saddle for the first time in a little while, just back in, got the cadence up to a manageable rate, and that little attack has cost Hayden Wild a couple of meters. For all that though, Thomas Steger, best of the rest yesterday with a fine second place finish for Team Lugano, and he's managing to stay on terms as the gradient eases ever so slightly back to a nonetheless slightly painful 4%. It's Osborne and Steger that are rejoined once more by Hayden Wild as he manages to drag himself back into contention. Herman Pernsteiner's thereabouts as well. He's within 4 or 5 meters of the front. We're not quite seeing that demonstrated, I suppose, in the gameplay at the moment, but Marlon Reusser is in flying form. She is going very well indeed in the women's competition, and it's a fine performance by Marlon Reusser once more, not cowed or in any way affected by the gradient or these climbs. And what about this from Marlon Reusser, sitting 12th in the competition amongst the 29 athletes involved. Got a few amateurs as well. Great performance yesterday by Jürgen Foley, the Swiss rider out of Newcastle West in County Limerick in Ireland as well, and he's a real character. We had a good chat with him yesterday. Finished 15th and best amateur rider. Had a few pro competitors behind him in the event, so who's going to be the best amateur? We keep an eye on that. At the moment the leading man is Jason Osborne with Thomas Steger for company, and Hayden Wild and Pernsteiner Steger just distanced ever so slightly over the top of the hill, and this is, I think, just a demonstration of just how tuned Jason Osborne is to the particular demands of online bike racing. E-racing and online racing is a very different kettle of fish, isn't it? And this Olympic medalist, this Olympic rowing medalist, Jason Osborne, knows that you've got to keep the hammer down over the top of the hill. You've got to continue to press on and really make huge power demands. And of course, his particular physical characteristics are suited to the descent, and he really churns out huge number and managed, well, albeit briefly, to gain just, about 10-15 meters on the rest. Of course, the draft effect is even greater at greater speeds, and it's the wake, the aerodynamic wake behind the rider just extends a little bit further, and that meant that Wild, Pernsteiner and Steger weren't distanced for very long, and they've managed to make their way back into the fold. So we've got a four-way battle at the front. Best of the rest led by Gino Mader in 5th place at the moment for Team Zurich. Lukáš Tomaszek, great performance from the Czech rider, sitting 6th at the moment, albeit another 300 meters, odd meters behind Gino Mader. Redo Hollenstein, 7th yesterday, running 7th at the moment. Another solid effort, and he's top scoring. I was about to say top scoring Team Zurich rider, but in actual fact that's Gino Mader. Those two riders running very much in tandem yesterday, and it's a similar pattern that's emerging in today's competition. Indeed, the same names starting to gravitate towards the front. The obvious exception, I think, is Lukáš Tomaszek. Super effort from him to get up and in amongst them. Martin van Riel running in 6, 7, 8, that kind of number at the moment as well. Top Belgian triathlete, one of the very best triathletes in the world. And Martin van Riel performed with great distinction in the recent Tokyo Olympics. 4th indeed, just out of the, agonizingly just outside the medals in Tokyo. An opportunity for a medal today for the 28-year-old Belgian triathlete Martin van Riel. He's running in 7th position at the moment, but already the bones of 650 odd meters behind the leading group, led by a positively impassive Jason Osborne. The German rider is making such an intense effort, and yet it just doesn't show. It is remarkable stuff, and he's happy enough to sit on the front as all the riders just trying to stay as hydrated as possible. Women's competition continuing to be led by Marlon Reusser, who looks pretty relaxed about things as well, and she's even managing to have a conversation and call for more drinks. Marlon Reusser, who has continued to hang on to that position in the top 11, 12 riders. She's riding solo again. She was a little bit miffed, wasn't she, that they all attacked her or else weren't able to stay with her yesterday. She found herself in the latter part of that first race riding solo. She would have liked a little bit more company, but I think that was just a sort of a wry jokey kitty moment for this extraordinary 30-year-old Marlon Reusser, who has performed wonderful stuff for Team Zurich today. From Jekenstorf, races with the LA BTC Ljubljana squad in road racing competition, has really made a big breakthrough in the last couple of years since she was able to put her studies and her work as a doctor behind her. Racing, working through lockdown on the front line, using her medical skills to great effect and to great value in the Swiss medical community. And well, Marlon Reusser is also a pretty good bike rider. Heading off to the SD Works squad. That's a fascinating move. Big move indeed for her for next year, for Marlon Reusser into next year's road season. Claims that this is her first online bike race yesterday. Dominated proceedings. She quickly got the hang of it. And Marlon Reusser is, well, clear of the rest, and by some considerable margin. Once more, the second woman out there at the moment, Laura Chacon, by the looks of things, from Team Basel, running 20th in the event. And Chacon, oh, it's Hannah de Vet. Hannah de Vet, apologies for that. As Hannah de Vet, who finished second yesterday, the Belgian triathlete for Team Lugano. Super point scoring performance from Hannah de Vet yesterday, as she aided Team Lugano and helped them to that glorious victory. And once again, it is the same top two riders. So Marlon Reusser running 12th at the moment, 15th Hannah de Vet. That's the top two women. And the difference between them, probably something in the order of about 500 meters at the moment. So about a half a kilometer already on this first lap that she's managed to, that Marlon Reusser has put into her nearest rival. Thomas Steger, Jason Osborne, Hermann Pernsteiner and Hayden Wills still leading the charge up front. Hayden Wild just showing it about 10 meters behind the others, but I think he'll manage to latch on. He's got that draft effect there on the flat, relatively flat, if anything downhill part of this circuit. And working their way through to begin a second lap, already through the first, the third of this event. And on this first ramp, there are two significant ramps on the circuit, and they've just hit the first of them. It's the second climb, though, that's the real doozy, and that certainly separates the wheat from the chaff and makes it particularly demanding. Again, Jason Osborne out of the saddle. He does that, doesn't he? He just needs to maintain a relatively low cadence compared to so many of the other riders. I think it's instructive, isn't it, to see the riders right beside each other. Gino Mader's almost within a few meters of they hit this intense first ramp, and they almost grind to a halt. Look at that. They're up and over 16% at the moment. It's a really grippy little sector, and the riders grinding away almost without exception out of the saddle. But Gino Mader's whirring along on a cadence that must be approaching 100 RPM, and it's a much, much smaller gear than Jason Osborne, who's grinding away. But, well, it's Osborne that's... His effort is the more effective, because there's, what, about 100-odd meters between, 150 meters between Jason Osborne running in that four-man pack at the front and Gino Mader, who's currently running 5th and racing solo at the moment. Lukas Tomaszek is now in 6th position, ahead of Boris Stein. Stein, great effort yesterday, finishing 5th. And he's starting to make his way back up through the group. Boris Stein, maybe a slightly slower getaway for him. Franz Luschke racing at home, and Luschke at the moment for Team Basel, 19th in the event, 3.6 watts per kilo, and those sort of numbers impressive enough, albeit not good enough quite to be up amongst the leading riders. Indeed, Marlon Reusser, as I can tell you, about 4.1, 4.4, those kind of numbers being thrown at us at the moment, watts per kilo from Marlon Reusser. It is an exceptional effort. It is comfortably the best of the women at the moment. Hannah de Vet is still sort of hanging on in there. There hasn't been a huge gain made by Marlon Reusser in the last 3 or 4 kilometers. Still within touching distance. Well, I say that's about 500 odd meters, but as I say, no huge gain. There's the standings at the moment. Steger, Wild, Osborne and Pernsteiner in a class of their own. Pernsteiner showing just a few meters off the back, but I think he'll manage to just jog back on. And it's about managing your effort, isn't it? It's about understanding the nature of the game, where you can take these little micro rests, and there are opportunities, not so much for freewheeling, but just to ramp back the high intensity effort just by an absolute fraction, and that absolute fraction can be the difference between glory and defeat. And we saw that yesterday from Gino Mader, who made an absolutely huge effort to stay with the leaders in the early stages. He kind of fell off a cliff a little bit and dropped back into the clutches, the welcome embrace, I think, of his teammate Reto Hollenstein. And the two worked together as best they could, albeit in remote locations. Gino Mader here in the South Sportshalle in Zurich, and Reto Hollenstein at home, some 700 odd kilometers away, but the two united in glory. Few fans have appeared today. I tell you what, Jason Osborne had a little bit of a trick up his sleeve yesterday, as he had a floor-mounted fan that didn't impinge upon the filming requirements here in the South Sportshalle, and other riders have recognised that while it isn't necessarily that easy to get the fan that they want, they can possibly get one that doesn't restrict our view. Jason Osborne just looks so relaxed. Not everybody looks quite as relaxed. Everybody got their game face on. Got that Movember look as well. Jason Osborne, well, what an advert for his hairspray manufacturer. And what a fantastic effort too from Hermann Pernsteiner from Team Lugano. As I mentioned, just race back into the wheels of the others. He's been part of that four-man group since the outset of this event, detaching themselves on the first climb and really hammering home their advantage on the second climb on the lap. And through this second lap of the event, coming up on 17 kilometers of racing, Pernsteiner, Osborne, Wild and Steger have it between them. Steger, if anything, needs to just get his skates on, just slips about 20 meters behind the rest. Is this a sign perhaps that the Team Lugano rider, a fabulous second place finish for him yesterday, but is he being distanced a little bit by his Austrian fellow countryman and indeed fellow teammate for Team Lugano, Hermann Pernsteiner, with Hayden Wild and Jason Osborne also in that leading group of three now. We'll keep an eye on that. Is Steger perhaps being distanced here? Boris Stein still sitting in fifth. The leading woman, I will remind you, continues to be Marlon Reusser. Things starting to settle down a little bit amongst the riders in the top 13, 14. Indeed, quite a few riders riding solo, turning into a time trial, albeit here in the hall, lots of the riders have company. They're in their own solo little pain cave, their own world of hurt. Just a few meters from the others, and it's intense stuff. And for Laura Chacon, we just got a sight of the German rider for Team Basel, running in 20th position at the moment, triathlete, first year pro next year. Looking forward to that. Won the 70.3 Ironman in Luxembourg recently, which I think was a breakthrough success for her. This is a very different kettle of petunias, isn't it, for Laura Chacon Bibak. Racing just alongside her teammate and the world esports champion, Jason Osborne. But Hermann Pernsteiner has time for a little bit of a chat, and they're managing to, you know, get a little bit of banter between them, enjoying the moment, enjoying the experience. How can they be doing that and still disappearing up the road? Pernsteiner, I tell you what, is enjoying this much more than he did yesterday. He's in the fight, he's in the mix. Midway through the event, midway through the second of 3 laps. Steger's right there. That answers that question, by the way. Steger makes his way back on. There's a little update of the situation. So those wattage numbers will fluctuate, but they're still pretty intense, and the watts per kilo numbers are to be believed, are quite a sight. Pernsteiner, Osborne, Steger and Hayden Wild, with now almost a kilometre up the road on Lukasz Tomaszek. Martin van Riel running in 6th place, the triathlon star. Boris Stein has managed to join him for company. They're battling for 6th, 7th position. Gino Mader slipped back a little bit. It's, I think, a sort of a replication of yesterday's event, where Mader had the power necessary to stay with the leaders in the early stages, but just maybe not the all-round game to stay with them for any length of time. Approaching 18 kilometers of racing for Gino Mader, and somewhat worryingly for him, the leaders up front are already coming up on 19.5 kilometers, so a little bit of almost 1.5 kilometers between Mader in 8th place, who's now once again got Redo Hollenstein for company. Just under half an hour of bike racing for these riders, and Mader realizing the advantages and the importance of staying hydrated here. You would think you could easily get through this event without drinking, but it is such an intense effort, such a high sweat rate, and the core temperatures absolutely flying up to the roof. 40 degrees plus for many of these riders, and any little bit of a drink here or there can serve to drag that down by a degree or two, and the performance gain is significant, is measurable, and could well be for many of these riders the difference between a significant point scoring position or being something of an also-ran. Settle down into a moment where we've got our leading group established. Now, how do they work out how they're going to do the final? The final lap is approaching, but not before we, well, before that, we've got the all-important moment of this second and toughest climb on the lap, and this is, it's coming up now. I think the riders are going to try and take as much a break as they can, and just as I said, we're coming up on 4%, so the riders are into that second tough climb, and this is the longer of the two climbs, not quite as steep at its maximum point, but it's the distance that I think will be the Waterloo for some riders here. For others, it serves as an opportunity. Osborne looked very good last time up this climb, so too Steger, Hayden Wild. Herman Pernsteiner was sort of scrabbling by his fingernails to stay on, or was he just playing a canny game, maybe just saving a little bit, knowing that they had to go up it 2 more times after that? Well, this is the first of those 2 times. The speed up the hill at the moment, I can tell you, they're over 20 kilometers an hour, you know, virtual speed, as they hit 9% ramp. And that's so it's 9% at 19-20 kilometers per hour. It is remarkable stuff from these pro bike riders, triathletes, and mountain bike superstars. Of those leading riders up front, Thomas Steger, 29-year-old triathlete for Team Lugano. Herman Pernsteiner, the other Team Lugano rider thereabouts, is of course a road race star for Austria, 31-year-old. Races with the Bahrain Victoria squad. Third on stage 6 of Tour de Suisse earlier on this year. It was Herman Pernsteiner. Hayden Wild, another triathlon star, 24-year-old New Zealander, 9th ranked in the world, and not surprisingly first in the Oceania region of world time trialing. Hayden Wild is a real superstar of the multidiscipline event. Pretty good in a bike in an individual sense, and more than 5, approaching 6 watts per kilo for Wild and friends right now as they draw themselves clear of the rest, but yet no daylight, no significant daylight really emerging between the rest. Just as I say, it looks like Steger's on a little bit of a push here. Team Lugano, their man Thomas Steger, great second place finish yesterday, really like to improve upon that. As I say, flew very slightly under the radar with that performance yesterday. He wasn't involved in any sprint finish, and he wasn't involved in the battle for the win, but it was a really, really impressive second place finish. And Steger now has gone on the attack. He's put, what, 16, 17 meters between himself and the rest, and Pernsteiner has recognized the danger of that, gone to the front of the now chase group of 3. Hayden Wild and Jason Osborne still there or thereabouts, but Osborne so impressive in the previous lap on this climb, now finding himself fighting something of a rearguard action, albeit I think we noticed that there was a little bit of a moment on that climb last lap round, just when it came to the steepest section, where he really said, this is the time to gun it. And let's watch out for this now as we hit this point of 11%. This is the toughest part of this climb for the riders. They'll really be feeling it on their bikes, and Osborne is out of the saddle. He's the only one I can see of the leading riders in the hall, actually, that is currently out of the saddle. So this is the time that Osborne, I think, well, is it to try and stay on board, stay with Pernsteiner and Steger? Now he goes to the front, and Osborne just guns it, and suddenly, in a thrice, they've closed the gap to Steger. Pernsteiner and Wild find themselves racing in the wake of the German rider, who's picked his moment, and the gradient starts to ease once more, and the others start to drag themselves back in. We're just coming to the top of this hill, and here's the moment really where we're not quite at the top. So Jason Osborne, another little ramp coming up, a little very, very short ramp which could offer an opportunity. Will the others be back on terms? Wild and Osborne for company. Pernsteiner and Steger have been distanced, and indeed Steger is, I'm not sure if he had a minor drop out there, because just momentarily on the app he was showing at a significant distance. Apologies, a little bit of a reset here. Have a little look at the screen, let it update, and then we understand that that four are still together. Oh, the pain of it. It really is. And these are the moments that will define this event. Pernsteiner, indeed, it is that has to just make that extra effort to get back on board. We've reached the top of the hill, and honours even after that series of huge efforts from the likes of Osborne, from Thomas Steger, who's very much there. Correct that comment, it looked as if he was dropping away, but I think that was just a little glitch in the system. They reset, and it's Pernsteiner, Osborne, Steger and Wild. Still very much a quartet at the front. Update on the best of the rest. Boris Stein is doing a solid job for Team Basel, albeit almost a kilometre back at this point. Lukas Tomaszek is in company with Boris Stein at the moment. Martin van Riel in 7th place. Bennett, Redo Hollenstein, Gino Mader, Connie Loser and Marlon Royce are the best of the women competitors at the moment. A fine 12th place overall in this 29-rider event, and Marlon Roycer is comfortably the leading woman competitor. Hannah de Vet continues to race second in the women's competition, albeit she is something in the order of about 800 metres. So Marlon Roycer slowly but steadily continuing to increase her advantage over the second place competitor Hannah de Vet, and those positions look kind of locked in at the moment, don't they? They replicate the top two finishing positions from yesterday's first event. Laura Chacon, third best now for Team Basel, running 21st overall. And Marta Bastianelli, hardly mentioned. I think we have mentioned her, have we? She's racing at home, of course. Former world champion Marta Bastianelli of the Ale BTC Lugano squad, with a shot at a podium finish if something remarkable happens. She's not that far, is she? Maybe a few hundred metres behind a podium finish at the moment. But Laura Chacon's hanging on to all-important third place at the moment amongst the women. Teams competition, just to remind you, in yesterday's event it was Lugano who packed well at the front with 3 men in prominent positions in the top 4. Will they be able to replicate that once more? Hannah de Vet, of course, scoring well for them with second place finish yesterday. Another shot, I think, at scoring for the team today. And will it be Pernsteiner? Will it be Wild? Or will it be Steger that score top points for the Lugano squad? Jason Osborne, the only interloper among that leading quartet of male riders not from Team Lugano. Gives you a sense of their all-round game. The Lugano squad racing on, in a virtual sense, home roads. This is the Lugano circuit. 12.9 kilometres. Rolling painful. You can imagine down by a lake it wouldn't be grippy at all, but no, they're never far from a hill in Switzerland, and they found some real doozies in this particular circuit. Over 40 kilometres an hour for Thomas Steger now. Briefly, and it was actually briefly uphill indeed, actually, the distance they were going. Core temperatures for the riders, I can tell you, they've been monitored here by the core company, and it's approaching, what, 38 degrees. One or two riders, I think, a bit higher than that. Pernsteiner's up over 39 degrees centigrade. I think that's evidenced really by the amount of sweat that's dropping onto the floor here, the South Sportshalle. Some of the other riders with big numbers, Maro Schmidt on 39.5, but up front they're looking pretty cool, aren't they? Boris Stein 38.2, and the difference 38.2 to 39.56. Well, it's only just over a degree, but it would be massive in terms of the the effect on a rider's performance. Having said that, Pernsteiner is right there, thereabouts at the moment. Still Steger, Pernsteiner, Osborne and Wild locked in battle. I tell you what, we potentially could have a situation as we approach the final lap where we could have a four-way sprint for the win at the end of the hilliest of the Digital Swiss 5, which would be a remarkable and unanticipated development. Long way to go, though, on this final lap now. They've just completed the second lap, and we're on to the difficult final tour. All-important final tour. And, Maro Schmidt's just got a sight of the Team Quebec Next Hash rider, stage winner in the Giro in 2021, earlier on this year, of course. A breakthrough performance for the 21-year-old Swiss rider from Bulach, who's taking his bow. I think Kyoto mentioned in yesterday's broadcast, but this is actually his first event in the Digital Swiss 5, and he's playing himself in. I won't say gently. He's running 13th at the moment for Team Lausanne. Probably feeling the effects of it. What about Gino Mader? He doesn't show anything, does he, on his face, and this is something to be got through for him at the moment, but it's a solid effort. Gino Mader, in the company of Reto Hollenstein, has dropped back into the order, still just on the outside, the outer reaches of the top 10. Running 10th at the moment is Gino Mader, just behind Reto Hollenstein. Sean Bennett has moved up nicely. Team Lugano really have all-round game, because Bennett's 8th place at the moment would not be a counting score for them. They've got so many riders there right in that quartet at the front. Two of their three riders in the leading four will score today. Looks like Steger is on the attack here, and it just shows you can do this at any point. Steger and Osborne showing on our screens as having established a little bit of an advantage here, a little bit of daylight. So two against two at the moment, and Osborne never likely to miss out. So those familiar black and white colours of Team Basel and those great red and blue halved jersey colours of Team Lugano are in concert, in cohort. Well, it's an interesting situation here. Ought Thomas Steger ride with Jason Osborne? Will he give him a turn here? Is he going to ride in the wake? When they come to the hill, the draft effect, not really relevant, but there's some value in it when they're on the flat road. So will Thomas Steger, with two teammates behind, and the huge threat that is the UCI Esports World Champion, Jason Osborne, who's going to be doing the work on the front at the moment? Well, it's Osborne as we hit this grippy little climb, the first of the two particularly significant challenges on this final lap. And Osborne looks like he's going for glory here, as Steger got the legs for the fight, and this is the real power climb, isn't it? It gets up over 16-17% and the rest on this grindy little climb. It's short, it's sharp, and it is quite a shock. Third time of asking, the riders are going to know all about it. Question is, what have they got left for the fight? Osborne and Steger, 37 metres clear now of Hayden Wild. Herman Pernsteiner, well, I mentioned that he was running sort of core temperatures amongst the hottest of any of the riders out there. I wonder if that's not costing him dear a little bit. Still managing over 5 watts per kilo, still running in a strong top 4 position here, but Herman Pernsteiner being distanced somewhat, as indeed is Hayden Wild. 46 metres and counting for Jason Osborne, but it's Steger's right there, and Steger, I think, is surely now the best opportunity for Team Lugano to put one over Team Basel. Jason Osborne looking for that double, and Steger looking to try and reverse the top two from yesterday's first race. This is the second race in the Digital Swiss 5. We'll have the third race for you later on this evening, starts at 7 p.m, and the final two events in tomorrow's schedule, so keep an eye out for those, but that's to come. We won't tell the riders about the battles they have yet in front of them. All they can focus on now is staying within sight and within touching distance of that avatar just in front of them. We're trying to keep those ones behind, and Osborne and Steger locked in combat. Nothing to choose between them. Steger has wait for a little bit of a reset, showing as a little bit of a Wi-Fi dropout there, perhaps potentially for Steger. Keep an eye on that. Osborne, now reset, he's right back there. So Steger and Osborne locked in combat. If anything, looks like we could be on the attack here. Steger going for glory and picking interesting moments. You might think that it's obviously going to be on the climb when these really big efforts are made, but we're plunging down the descent, and Steger, it's not easy to distance a rider with the draft effect extended at the faster speeds, up over 60 kilometers an hour on this descent at approaching 5% downhill. And Steger with Osborne easily able to just work his way back up and onto the wheel of the Austrian rider. So it's a triathlete leading a rowing superstar. Osborne, of course, is making the transition over to full-time bike racing. That's the plan at any rate. Stagiaired and tested, and was a trial run for him with the Deceuninck Quick Step squad, the all-conquering Belgian team in road race cycling earlier on, or well, not so long ago, the second half of the year, once his Olympic commitments to Team Germany in rowing. And he managed a silver medal on that in that occasion, and now looks to perhaps see if he can replicate those wonderful performances on two wheels away from the rowing lake. Steger and Osborne continuing to extend their advantage over Hayden Wild, now up over 100 meters. Wild in turn has gained something like 100 odd meters on Hermann Pernsteiner. You don't have to be a maths genius to know that means that Pernsteiner in fourth place has now slipped more than 200 meters behind the two leaders, Steger for Team Lugano and Team Basel, Team Basel's Jason Osborne. In fifth place at the moment, well, he's in a different planet. It's Boris Stein, still on that last climb at the moment. When I'm saying that, he's actually on the descent after it, but he's 1.5 kilometers behind in fifth place. Lukas Tomasek in sixth. Martin van Riel is in seventh. Rado Hollenstein running ninth at the moment, just behind Sean Bennett and just ahead of his teammate Gino Mader. And Rado Hollenstein, what a great old stager he is. He's suffering. He's not much enjoying this. He had to be practically coaxed off his bike yesterday. You'd think he actually is hating this, but he loved it so much. He continued to ride for another 10-15 minutes after the bike race yesterday just to get the cool down that he needed. And well, that's an excellent chandelier, isn't it, that he's just getting a little sight of. He's got wonderful light, if nothing else, here for the Israel Startup Nation rider, riding with Team Zurich. What a great stalwart performer for team and country over the years Rado Hollenstein has been, and a solid effort for him in ninth position at the moment. Hermann Pernsteiner, I can tell you, is still hanging on in fourth place, but he's now over 300 meters behind the leaders as they head towards the next climb of the day, and it's just starting to ramp up ever so slightly between Thomas Steger and Jason Osborne. Time to press on. Approaching 6 watts per kilo for Thomas Steger, and that's something that's worth recording, isn't it? It has never, for more than a few moments on the descent, it's never really dropped more than, 4.5 to 5 watts per kilo. It's great lighting too for Marta Bastianelli. She looks like she genuinely is in the pain cave. She looks like a cave there, doesn't it, for the former world road race champion Bastianelli, who, for all that her current position is not quite what she would have hoped for, is still ploughing on regardless. And Marta Bastianelli for Team Luzern, currently running in 24th position. She's got Nina Deron of her teammates just behind her. Well, and Zuger a little bit further back as well. Down to the final 8 kilometers of racing here on race 2, the Digital Swiss 5. We've got a two-way battle for the lead. Is it going to come to the final climb? The riders are approaching now, the leading riders at any rate, just on a little descent, and things will start to ramp up, and that's the opportunity for a late attack. But there's just been nothing to choose between Steger and Osborne so far, and this is going to be absolutely fascinating stuff. Will Steger in the red and blue colours be able to fend off yesterday's victor and the UCI Esports World Champion Jason Osborne in those black and white colours of Team Basel? But Steger on the front as we get set now for this next climb. Samuel Hurzeler of the Team Lausanne squad is in the tri-tuck. I'm not sure what advantage that is. It was nice. Some people actually like that position, don't they? 37-year-old triathlete superstar from the Bernese Oberland. Ironman rider. It's all too short for him. He'd only be getting going just as things finish up. Pernsteiner, I think, is resolved to his fate. He's in a solid 4th place, and he's going to struggle, I think, to get on terms with his teammate Hayden Wilde. So frustratingly for Herman Pernsteiner, in overall terms, he's going to, I think, finish 4th for the 2nd day in succession. Remarkably, his 4th place finish won't be required for Team Lugano because they've got Hayden Wilde and Thomas Steger further ahead. The question is, will Hayden Wilde, it's going to be tough for him to close that 400-metre gap, but Steger is very much in the hunt. And these riders locked in combat, riding in tandem, well, actually riding side by side as they go into this climb. Would put you in mind of battles in the Tour de France, that famous photograph of Jacques Anquetil in the 1960s, and Raymond Poulidor, side by side, almost shoulder to shoulder in a virtual sense, going for glory here. Team Lugano against Team Basel. Lugano on the left, Thomas Steger, Rutzeler in the hurt locker, Bastianelli, Grimet, Reto Hollenstein, all racing in remote locations. Here in the Salzsportshalle, it is all the riders starting to look around themselves and look for something that will give them the encouragement to make one last fight for glory on this final lap. 50 minutes of racing here. Marlon Reusser looking pretty relaxed about things in actual fact, and who would blame her? She's been solid, in a solid 12th place since, well, probably halfway around the first lap, and Marlon Reusser is almost in a different postcode from the best of the rest of the women competitors. Indeed, Hannah de Vet is at this point over 1.5 kilometers behind Marlon Reusser. Indeed, she's coming up on 2 kilometers behind her. That's the difference, and the huge daylight that Marlon Reusser has put between herself and Hannah de Vet. De Vet, in turn, is some way distanced the rest of the battle for the final podium positions. Osborne and Steger locked in combat. But what's happening up front now as Osborne goes for glory, and Osborne is out of the saddle in a virtual sense, his avatar out of the saddle. He too, very briefly, just looking down into the hole, also out of the saddle. This is a sustained push from the world champion, and he's putting a little bit of daylight between himself and Thomas Steger. I'm not so sure Steger is going to be able to resist this one last time and get back on, because as we approach the toughest part of this climb with the gradient up over 8% right now, this is the moment when Osborne has really made them hurt on previous laps, and he's putting distance between himself and Steger, and I'm just waiting to see does this reset. But no, I think it's very much secure. It's a secure advantage now for Jason Osborne, up over 80 meters of an advantage. Well, we didn't see this quite coming, but Steger, who has resisted for longer than he managed yesterday, for longer than anyone might have expected, but there's no answer really to the extraordinary power, intensity, and the time trial ability that Jason Osborne brings to the party here. And this is, well, a powerhouse display by the world champion. He's unzipped that jersey, trying to keep himself as cool as he possibly can. The fan and everything is trying to help him here. He's up over 80 meters advantage and clear of Team Lugano's Thomas Steger. What about this from Jason Osborne? Is Steger really not able to do anything about that? He has resisted for as long as was possible, as long as was reasonable. Steger racing in a virtual sense, racing in a remote location. Osborne here in the hole. Steger closed it up ever so slightly, but it's holding solid now at 70 odd meters between Steger and Osborne. Just as I say, it slips back up over 90 meters, so I think this could be enough. And as we approach the top of the hill, the descent to come, which has also on previous laps been a happy hunting ground for Jason Osborne. Osborne's still out of the saddle. Others have slunk back in, and difference in styles in there between Gino Mader and Jason Osborne. Not with contract, as I understand it. Jason Osborne still waiting for confirmation of exactly where he'll be racing next year, but I don't doubt that there will be teams that will be very interested in securing his services just to see what sort of a bike racer he's ultimately going to be on the road. There's no question, though, that there's almost no one to touch him in the world of e-racing right now, as Osborne has established his advantage and is approaching the crest of the hill. The descent on the flat road to come will take him to glory today, as the final lap will be a victory lap for Jason Osborne, as long as he can keep the effort going, because well, he's got to just keep that intensity, can't let up for a moment, even though he has now established an advantage. Well, of course, he's into the descent, so immediately his advantage ramps up over 200 meters. That will reset when Steger gets onto the descent himself and settle back into that sort of 80-90 meters. At home, Hurzler, Hollenstein, Grumet and Bastianelli continuing to press on. The best placed of those riders is Hollenstein. Great ninth place finish, or ninth position as things currently stand for himself and Gino Mader. They're locked in their little private battle to be the top scoring Team Zurich rider. Mader and Hollenstein, well, will they get back together again, have a little sprint for glory? Mader managed to disappear up the road on his teammate yesterday, a late attack, helping him to a position that was just ahead of his teammate Redo Hollenstein. Martin van Riel, just to remind you, for Team Luzerne is sitting in 8th position. He's the top-ranked Team Luzerne rider as things currently stand. They were 4th in the team standings yesterday. Boris Stein for Team Basel will be the second counting Team Basel rider. That's a superb effort from Boris Stein. 5th yesterday, 5th again today. And Jason Osborne's effort. I think we are down into the closing moments of this event. And it is Jason Osborne going for glory. But I think he's plunging down the descent. Down to the final 2 kilometers of racing here. Hermann Pernsteiner focusing. He's in a just private little world. For all that it's a very public arena here, he's just, the senses are starting to diminish and he's just locked into his own little effort. The diminutive Austrian climbing sensation. Maybe the climb's not just quite long enough for him today, and he will be racing to a distance 4th position at the moment, 2.3 kilometers down on Jason Osborne, and they've reset since the finish line, since the descent, and the advantage now up over 150 meters for Jason Osborne, 160 odd meters between himself and Thomas Steger. He's into the final moments, into the final kilometer of this event. And Jason Osborne will have time to reflect on another job well done. You have to do it again this evening at 7 o'clock. So managing your effort across the 3 days is something else, because these are huge efforts here that are being made, huge interval efforts, and the body needs to sustain and recover and go again. Jason Osborne will have slightly longer recovery time than anyone else, though, as he approaches the closing stages. Osborne within the final 500 meters. So, I wonder how that looks for him, as Jason Osborne is less than 500 meters to go to the conclusion of this second stage, second race in the Digital Swiss 5. It has been a wonderful promenade through Lugano today, and Jason Osborne has delivered once more. Down to the final 200 meters, and inside 200 meters to go. And Jason Osborne almost at the finish line. Jason Osborne comes across the finish line and he has completed the event. Time to celebrate for Jason Osborne. Job done once more. He's pedaling now for recovery. The others still pedaling with intensity for what they'll manage to get. Thomas Steger now within the closing stages as well, and Steger completes the event in 2nd place. Thomas Steger running in, finished 14 seconds down at the conclusion. What a great effort from Steger, and he's the top scoring Team Lugano rider. Hayden Wild's going to come in for third, racing solo as well within the final kilometre now. Just running under the kite is the third place finisher for Team Lugano, Hayden Wild of New Zealand. The New Zealand triathlon star is going to, so it's more great, very, very similar actually results I think for Team Lugano, as they're going to finish second and third on the day, second, third and fourth on the day. Those second and third place finishes, very, very strong point scoring position as well. And Hannah Devet has been secure in her second position amongst the women, also a very strong scoring position. For Marlon Reusser, she's solid in 12th overall at the moment, and that amounts to a resounding commanding lead in the women's competition. And it's Hayden Wild that is within closing distance of the completion of this event. Pernsteiner to come after that. Boris Stein is another rider riding solo. Lucas Tomasek riding solo. Where are the scraps? Well, Bennett, Sean Bennett has almost but not quite been overhauled by Martin van Riel. And then we've got about 300 metres between Reto Hollenstein and Gino Mader. So I think that one is going to go a little private battle between the Team Zurich riders and the Swiss compatriots. Going to go the way of Reto Hollenstein, with Gino Mader just jogging along and racing towards the finish line in 10th position at the moment. Laura Chacon is 22nd as things currently stand, and running in third amongst the women for Team Basel. So podium finish on offer here for Lara Chacon Bibak, the German rider with Team Basel. And Reusser still with some way to go to complete the event. She's about 4 kilometres from the finish line at the moment. Job done for Jason Osborne, for Thomas Steger, and indeed for Hayden Wild. Solid effort and great podium finish for the Team Lugano rider. A man from New Zealand can imbibe with a sense that he has produced another impressive result. Pernsteiner's home as well, just under 2.5 minutes down on Jason Osborne. And a solid effort for the Austrian climber. We'll reset and go again. 7 o'clock this evening. Boris Stein will be the next rider to finish, and he'll be the second counting rider for Team Basel. Will it be enough though? Once again, Jason Osborne disappears up the road. Once again, individual success going his way, but I think, wouldn't it be useful if he were able to bring Boris Stein with him and get him all the way to the finish line, at least within touching distance. And Osborne, just to his left at the moment, is completing his warm-down procedure, as Boris Stein of Team Basel, just sitting right beside him at the moment, just has to jog his way through the final 200 metres to come to the finish line in 5th place. Boris Stein, German rider, German compatriot, and Team Basel teammate of the individual race winner, Jason Osborne. Job done. He finally can smile. Solid effort done for Team Basel's Boris Stein, the 37-year-old triathlon star. Second in Ironman Lausanne in 2021. Winner of Ironman Sweden in 2019. He likes long distance stuff. Doesn't mind a little bit of a short, sharp shock either. Well, Lucas Tomaszek will be the next rider to finish, and then we'll have Sean Bennett at a remote location for Team Lugano. Yet another great and exceptional performance for Team Lugano, who put, no less than 4 riders into the top 7. Just 2 to count amongst the men, of course, and 1, your leading woman, will score the points towards the all-important teams competition, which I will remind you was taken in resounding fashion by Team Lugano yesterday. So Sean Bennett down inside the final kilometre. And leading woman competitor, just to remind you, Marlon Reusser, has about 2.5 kilometres to go. So still about 3 minutes before we see Marlon Reusser across the line for Team Zurich. Reto Hollenstein approaching the finish, still got to keep his eyes fixed on the screen. Oh, he loves it, doesn't he? Tell you what, I do like a professional rider who shows just how hard it is. Those riders who manage, it's almost freakish, isn't it? Jason Osborne, his ability to make those intense efforts and for it not to in any way be betrayed by his true feelings, betrayed by his face, his facial expressions. Tomaszek is finished, he's home and hosed, as indeed is Sean Bennett in 7th position, just over 5.5 minutes down on the winner. Martin van Riel has raced solo for much of the day. He's through and home ahead of, not by much, Redo Hollenstein. Indeed, we had a bit of a gallop for the line there. A scrap for 8th position, going the way of Martin van Riel, not quite but almost overhauled by Redo Hollenstein at the death. So Hollenstein keeping the intensity through to complete in 9th place for Team Zurich. Hollenstein 7th yesterday, 9th today. Solid effort. Gino Mader, of whom might have been expected, but still great effort from the nice top 10 finish for Team Zurich and Gino Mader. That could well be helping them again to contend for top 3 finish amongst the teams. Mader within the last couple of 100 meters for Team Zurich has managed to fend off Connie Loser of Team Luzern for that final position of the top 10. And I can tell you Marlon Reusser, the leading woman competitor, is within 800 meters of the finish line. Connie Loser has done a solid job for Team Luzern today in 11th position. But it's Marlon Reusser's coming through to complete. It is going to be another victory for the Swiss heroine. What a superb performance from this time trial powerhouse. And a little wave, time to savour the moment and enjoy the experience because it's been a dominant effort. And Marlon Reusser now within the final 500 meters is racing to glory. She will join Jason Osborne in the presentation very shortly. Another dominant effort from the current Swiss time trial heroine, who is just working her way through the virtual Lugano town and into those final 300 meters to accept the plaudits of the crowd here and indeed everyone at home watching, as she finally flashes that broad beaming smile and takes on board what she's achieved. Another dominant effort. What a remarkable athlete she is indeed. She's through and home and across the line. Time to celebrate and time to wave. Marlon Reusser gets the victory once more here in Lugano. Gino Mader shakes his head. He finishing 10th. That was exactly the value of Marlon Reusser's effort there. Well, next to finish we expect Maro Schmidt. He's come in for his first helping of Digital Swiss 5 racing today for Team Lausanne. He's got a sense of just how painful and horrific and wonderful we'll very shortly have the presentation of the prizes to the winning men and women competitors as Marlon Reusser tries to take on board what she's achieved today and has a little chat with her teammate Gino Mader. I think you don't need to be a genius to figure out exactly what she's talking about. Those old hills were tough, weren't they? Hurtzelar, Bastianelli, Grumet and well, Hollenstein's completed his effort, so today, at least, he's straight off the bike and maybe jump back on and complete his warm-down ritual. But Grumet, who had all sorts of difficulties, technical problems yesterday, looks like he's going to at least get a complete event out and done for him today. 20th for Team Zurich. Marta Bastianelli running 25th and just one woman behind her, Nina Derham. And Jason Osborne heading towards the podium once more. Time for a little wry smile maybe we can get a chance to hear from him very shortly. But Jason Osborne heading towards that victory ceremony, as indeed is Marlon Reusser. I think she'll be encouraged off her bike. She's going to complete her warm down ritual. Of course, the riders need to try and maintain the focus. They've got to do it all again in a few hours' time. Just time for a little bit of a light lunch. I think you need to go overboard with the food, with the level of intensity. And a quick reminder, of course, that the next battle that we have for you, race 3, is through the virtual streets of Lausanne, coming up at 1900 hours, 7 p.m. Central European time. Just helping up racing. And tomorrow's racing, by the way, starts a little bit earlier, 11:30 a.m. Central European time for the virtual Basel race. And then we're into the 5th and final event, racing through the virtual streets of Zurich for the final event, and that starts at 4 p.m. Central European time. So we have got time now for the presentation of the victory honours. Let's hand back to Stefan down in the hall.
So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome for the victory ceremony of the second stage of the Digital Swiss 5. We are looking forward to present you again the winner of this stage. And we will begin for sure with the first woman. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the award ceremony of the second stage. In first place and stage winner representing Switzerland, the second of the Olympic Games of Tokyo. Welcome and congrats to Marlon Reusser. The prizes will be handed out by Oliver Nüffeler, Manager Marketing Cities of Schweiz Tourismus. Welcome, and we welcome and congratulate the winner of the second stage. He took another stage win here in the Saalsporthalle Zurich. Welcome to the world champion. Welcome representing Germany, Jason Osborne. So, another stage win for these two. Congrats, and we're looking forward to see you on the third stage this afternoon. We will meet again in Lausanne. Thank you very much, Marlon Reusser and Jason Osborne.
Will that wine stay on cork between now and the third race, the second race of the day that comes up at 7 p.m? That's the big question. I'll tell you what, if it doesn't, we could have a change in the lead. That's it for this. I can just to confirm you, by the way, that our best team for the second day in succession is Team Lugano. So a complete, perfect replication of the victories from yesterday's events. Jason Osborne getting the win here in Lugano. 14 Basel, the individual success, as indeed did Marlon Reusser with her wonderful success to replicate yesterday's victory. And Team Lugano extending their lead in the team's competition. That's it for race 2. We'll be back for race 3 at 7 p.m. Please do join us then. But for now, it's goodbye.